Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video. Today I have a Spyderco that's actually been out for a while, but one which, I don't know, didn't seem to get a lot of attention. Now, I know there were a couple of big YouTubers who weren't that crazy about it, but there were also some YouTubers, especially really, guys who are really into knives, who are collectors, who are, steel snobs, blade snobs. A lot of people really have liked this knife because there's a lot that's really compelling about it. And so I'm going to try to be fairly balanced in this review. And while I understand that this is not totally practical for everyone, certainly if you're a big Spyderco fan or if you are a custom knife fan and you like a knife that is very faithful to the custom maker's design, but of course comes in at a more affordable price point, this is a great option. Not only that, but this is a knife I really want to check out because number one, it's big and I like big knives. Number two, it has CPM 10V steel, and I've heard all these great things about 10V, that it's just crazy edge retention and highly abrasion resistant, and so I really was curious to try it, and so that's been very impressive. Also, the overall design on this knife, the full flat grind, super thin edge geometry makes this an extremely slicey knife. But also, I love the stonewash finish on the titanium. I love the overall design of this blade just in general. And so, yeah, I've been quite curious about it, and I was quite happy to be able to get my hands on this, and I've really enjoyed using it, carrying it, and being very impressed by the performance on that steel. It is really good. So let's go ahead and get into size and weight now that I've kind of gotten past the introduction, and then we'll move over to, kind of a close-in or a tabletop view of this knife. So size and weight on this is very big, 10 inches overall, 4.5-inch blade, 5.5-inch handle. Now, one dimension that's pretty interesting is the handle thickness on this is just a hair over, like maybe a 32nd of an inch over 3/8 of an inch. So very thin, carries actually quite nicely in pocket. By the way, you'll have to bear with me. My voice is a little rough today because of a cold, but wanted to get this video out anyway. Now, the other, one other thing now with the thinness, the other thing that stands out about this knife is the weight. So you've got a pretty stinking big knife here, and the weight on all of this is only 6.1 ounces. So to be just over 6 ounces at 10 inches is actually quite impressive. I have a lot of knives that don't come anywhere near 10 inches in length that weigh more than this one, okay? So that's the size and weight and the introduction. Let's go ahead and flip over to a closer look at this knife, and I'll give you sort of the tabletop. All right, here we are with the top-down view of this Spyderco K2, and I want to go over the details of this, starting with the blade the way that we normally do. So there it is, that full flat ground. Look at the grind lines in that blade. That is absolutely gorgeous, and you can see Farid K2 right there. And on the other side, you've got Spyderco, the spider there, and the fact that this is CPM 10V. So this knife is, or this blade specifically, is a little bit of a different design, but it's extremely functional. Okay, so you've got a very long, wide piece of steel, ground very thin behind the edge. If I pull in, let's look at the width on that blade, and I'll pull in the military right beside it. Notice that it's even a little thinner than the military. And the military, I wouldn't say, is a super thick blade stock. There's the military there. I'll bring that in again for some other comparisons. But that thinness and that very thin edge geometry means this thing slices like a beast. It is crazy. And notice how there's not much secondary bevel there. As I turn that up so you can kind of catch the light a little bit. See how it's very small secondary bevel? That's because the edge is very thin, making this slice like crazy. Now, that would not be possible with every steel. If you had something like AUS 8 or whatever, you would get an edge that rolled so easily it would be no good. But 10V, because it's extremely tough and it can become extremely hard, you can get this very thin edge and still have a good working knife. So this blade, although it looks a bit different, and it definitely has its own look, there's no question about that, it's extremely functional. As soon as you take this out and go to do anything with it, you right away realize that, you know what, whatever I initially thought about this, this blade cuts like crazy. And so for that aspect of it, it's very, very impressive. Also though, it's gonna keep cutting like crazy. The edge retention on 10V, it's highly abrasion resistant, and that 10V steel just holds onto its edge, just does not want to let go. And so really, really good performance on that steel. Now, it's not as stainless as, say, some of your S30V or S110V or different steels that are out there, but it is very, very high performance. And so as sort of the steel snob in me really, really enjoys this blade and the ability to really appreciate what great steel can do for you. So really, really impressive blade, even though the shape is maybe not exactly what everyone would want. And that trailing tip definitely gives it a distinctive look, and of course it comes directly from the custom, but I know that not everyone is going to be crazy about that. I will say though, if you kind of have doubts or you're on the fence about this, once you go and cut something, those doubts quickly go away. One more thing about this blade, and that is that it's got this nicely crowned spine for the first 1.5 inches or so, and that's really, really good, so that when you get your thumb up here, it's very, very comfortable and you can really do some good cutting with a lot of control and a lot of strength because of that comfortable sort of thumb ramp or thumb rest up there. Moving on to lockup and deployment. It is not a ball bearing knife. It is phosphor bronze washers here. That said, it is quite smooth. Okay, you can, well, hard to do left-handed and on camera, but I have no problem opening this in all of the typical Spyderco ways that we love to open our Spydercos, to Spidey drop it and to flick it. Let me see if I can, if I switch to my right hand, if I can, well, I can't get it on camera. You'll have to take my word for it, guys. I can flip this knife pretty easily, and it's very, very smooth and very easy to deploy. As well, it's very smooth and very comfortable to close as well. Now, it wasn't always that way, okay? I will say that initially this knife had quite a bit of lock stick, and that's just the way these guys kind of go. If you watch a number of videos on these or you read about them in the forums, you'll find that pretty well all of the K2s have some pretty severe lock stick out of box, but that it goes away over time. Now, maybe I was fortunate. I didn't find mine extremely severe. I've had knives where, you know, you almost had to get a tool in here and open it. This one was never to that point, but there was definitely some lock stick, and over a few weeks it went away. One of the biggest reason for that, I guess, is that there's no stainless steel lock bar insert on this knife, and I'm not sure why they made that choice. It would be, you know, in my case, in my way of thinking, that would definitely be an improvement on this knife, would be a stainless steel lock bar insert. You can also see that the lockup is pretty late, and again, that's just one of the design features of this knife, and I think it has a lot to do with getting that knife to be securely opened and locked in that open position, just because of the potential for damage if a blade of this size were to come down on your fingers. It's extremely thin, as I said, and it slices really, really well, so you do not want to have this knife closing on you. In terms of the pivot is, of course, a Torx screw. I'll show you that there now. There is, I meant to mention this and I'm just remembering it now, there is an over travel stop there, so you can't overextend this lock bar because you can see there is a disc in there stopping you from doing that. But yeah, no stainless steel lock bar insert. So Lockup and deployment, I would say, is acceptable. I mean, it's definitely smooth enough, and it's definitely more than adequate to do anything that you want to do. But yeah, would I like to see a lock bar insert on this? Absolutely. The other thing is, although it's not a problem, again, in the closed position, the lock bar does obscure the spider hole. Now, I don't have a problem getting my fingers in there, so I can't really complain too much about that, but it is a little bit closed off, and so I've just got to be a little more thoughtful if I'm either opening this left-handed, or if you're going to Spidey flick it, you know, your finger is having to kind of get in there and reach past the lock bar. Okay. Notice, by the way, while we're talking about the lock bar, that cutout, sort of that wave pattern, comes directly from the Farid custom. All right, so that's why it's done that way. There's no special meaning behind it. Now, the handle, sorry, I'm not thinking where I want to go next here. Maybe it's the cold medicine. The handle on this is quite thin, and also quite large, with a very nice stonewash finish. Let me zoom in on that so you can get a good look at it. The finish on this is really, really well done. I've got to say I'm a big fan of that finish. Shares, I think, a lot of similarity with the Slice Bowie, and I have no idea whether or not I'm saying that right, but I think you know which knife I'm talking about. Let's see. The lanyard hole is tubed, but notice the construction on this. So notice the backspacer here is this very big, sort of bulbous spacer at the back, and then nothing else until you get up to the pivot. So there are only those 2 points, and then of course the tubed lanyard and the stop pin there. So this is a fairly minimalist handle construction, I would say. It's also not milled out at all, if you can see in there. But it is quite comfortable in hand, and I find that this stonewash finish is actually quite grippy. If you compare it to the finish on the TI Military, the Military is still, you know, it's good and comfortable and no problem. But in terms of, you know, just how smooth that surface is, if I rub my finger on both of these, my finger just wants to stick to this one a little bit more. And that's one of the reasons I really, really like this finish, is it still leaves you with that plain tie, but it also achieves a decent amount of texture and grip for you, so you're not sort of dropping the knife. A different way of doing that would be what you find on the Real Steel S571. This knife has sort of that bead blasted finish like what you'd find on a Sebenza. And again, people have often commented that bead blasted finish is great because it gives you a lot of tactile, you know, it gives you a lot of grip on the knife without, you know, doing anything to it. You know, it doesn't have inlays, it doesn't have, you know, a bunch of milling. It just, by the finish itself, allows you to get some grip. And that's what this stonewash does. It's not just super slick. It's actually got a pretty good grip to it, so that when you're holding on to this, it's actually quite solid in your hand. Now, the pocket clip is single position. I've got to say that I'm not a huge fan of that. I definitely would have liked to see a tip down or a tip up carry option on this, especially considering if they're modeling this after the K2 Custom. I've seen lots of pictures of custom K2s that have tip up carry, so it would have been nice to see that carried over into this production version. But there you are. You're stuck with single position, which is right side, tip down carry only. Now, having said that, I've got to say that this is not, I'm not as big on this as I used to be. Yes, I still prefer tip up carry, no question, but on a larger knife, when you take this out of pocket, you're going to take it out like this, and your hand is basically already in position to Spidey flick it. And so, and I mentioned that on the TI Military as well. This is another knife that I've complained about the pocket clip being only tip down carry, but in reality, when you're carrying this knife and using it, it's really not any kind of impediment to have this tip down only. Now that said, I may be sending this away to get that changed, but I have to kind of bring that back to mind when I look at this knife, because of the fact that, you know, when you're carrying this, as you take it out of your pocket, you're very, like, here's basically how my hand would be out of pocket, and I'm already able to get the knife open. I don't have to reposition my hand at all, like I would if it were, if the pocket clip were designed for tip up. So let's see, what else do we need to talk about on this knife? I guess we pretty well covered everything. I guess the overall impression that I have of this knife is, you know, it's a large knife. It's extremely well put together. Excuse me, very useful. Okay, and that's what's kind of cool about this knife is it looks really different. You know, it looks very creative and almost a little bit artistic, but then when you get it in hand and you go to use it for some cutting task, it's extremely natural and extremely capable. So it's a great tool that also manages to look really cool and look really different. The other thing that's great about this is, of course, that it has that CPM 10V steel, which anybody who's a bit of a steel snob will really, really appreciate. And of course, it also, I'm generally speaking a fan of knife makers or knife companies that will do a collaboration and it's not just a total misrepresentation of whatever the original was. And there are some like that. But this, no, it's very, very much like the custom K2 if you were to go and buy one from Farid Mahr himself. So overall, I've got to say, really unique knife, extremely attractive, extremely useful, with those couple minor critiques that I mentioned. And of course, the one thing that I didn't make much of a point about is out of box, you will get quite a bit of lock stick, but that goes away. You know, give it 2 weeks or so and that'll be gone. There you go. Hope you enjoyed the video and we will talk to you soon.